Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University.
Hi friends, on behalf of the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University, Ahmedabad, I welcome you to this video lecture. We are discussing this for the Master of Arts students in Journalism and Mass Communication. And this is paper 8, which is on professional writing, and this is unit 3 of paper 8, and this is the third part of this unit 3. And we've been discussing new scripts here, and this will continue today as well. And as you know, this recording comes to you from Chaitanya Studio at Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University, Ahmedabad. So it's very important to have an understanding of media ethics here, because without an ethical standpoint, without an introduction or an idea of what media ethics is all about, newspaper or any kind of journalism or any kind of communication will not be very effective, or might not even be very professional, because it's one of the professional requirements of any kind of a vocation, and more so in journalism, because this is the fourth estate and the journalists have a very important role in meeting the informational needs of the audience. And as we know that the strength of a democracy is the power of the people, and people can make right judgments if they have the right information. And to ensure that they have the right information, it's important for professional journalists to be very much adherent to the ethical norms and the requirements of the profession. So media ethics forms the foundational code of conduct for all forms of media, and that includes journalism and entertainment. So basically it's rooted in moral principles. It guides media practitioners on what is considered good and responsible behavior in their profession. Because as we know that this is information which is regarded as credible, this is information that is regarded as believable, this is regarded as truthful, and very often people make their judgments on what appears in the media, because what appears in the media is regarded as an important kind of an evidence. So a lot of people would say that, okay, because this is in the media, that is why it is true. So unless you strive for those ethical norms, this responsibility that we have, or this acceptability or credibility we have as a professional journalist, is dependent on these ethical norms. So these ethical standards, as we know, are derived from broader moral philosophies. And as we know, these moral philosophies have been there since prehistoric times, and they always talk about, the importance of being good, of importance of being morally upright, the importance of not doing anything wrong, and all those kind of things. So they are very practical things as well, because people come to a channel again and again because they know that whatever is being put out on that channel is believable and true. So these ethical standards are derived from broader moral philosophies, and which are influenced by cultural, religious, and philosophical teachings. So understanding media ethics is crucial for media professionals to navigate the complex landscape of modern media responsibly. So there are various forms of media ethics. At times there are guidelines. For example, the Press Council of India has certain guidelines. There are certain international guidelines. There are guidelines, for example, by child rights commissions, by women's commissions, and by different other cases where you are supposed to stand by, or you have to make sure that the identity of the victims are not really are not revealed, and people who have had who have been victims of violence or such things, they do not become double the victims by their identification in the media in a certain manner. So the principles of media ethics apply across various media formats. They apply on the print, on television, online platforms, social media, and of course in films, in theater and the arts. And each medium with its unique characteristics requires a tailored approach to ethical considerations, because we know that Pictures can be doctored. We know videos can be doctored, and in these days of artificial intelligence, we are aware of the deep fakes and such things. So every medium, as we know, has certain requirements or has certain characteristics, and an understanding of the medium is important to understand these ethical norms as well, because for different media the ethical norms would be a little or more stringent, or stringent in certain cases, or more stringent in certain cases. So fundamental to media ethics is the respect for universal values such as life, law and legality. Respect for life, respect for privacy, respect to make sure that people are not endangered. By putting out an information, if a certain group of individuals or a community is endangered, we are not supposed to put that out on air. Respect for law, of course, respect for law is paramount, because if you break the law, then you might be booked for that. And legality, so one is, which is codified law, other which is regarded as legal. So media professionals are expected to uphold these values in their work, ensuring that their content is respectful, lawful and ethically sound. So there are quite a few ethical challenges. As we know, often we have to rely on other people for information, because a journalist might not be present at all places all the times, all by himself or herself. They are dependent on other sources. They are dependent on official sources. They are dependent on eyewitnesses. They are dependent on other people. So these ethical challenges are there. So news media in its all forms faces the constant threat of manipulation by external entities, and these could be governments and corporations. And these manipulations, so many governments, they would want to, or many entities, external entities outside the country, they would want a certain thing to go out in the public domain. Many corporations, they have a certain vested interest to keep certain things out in the public domain. For example, there have been cases way back in the last century where the lot of tobacco lobbies were able to put out news that okay, tobacco was not that dangerous, but later on it was found out that of course they are life threatening. So people are trying to do these manipulations. So they can at times be overt censorship. In certain countries there is plain censorship. You're not supposed to say certain things, or you're not supposed to cover certain events. And there are more subtle forms of influence, and all those kind of influences are there, and news media is constantly in threat. One of those influences could be in terms of receiving criticism, or receiving kind of some kind of legal cases against companies, so that they do not cover certain events. So journalists often encounter various ethical dilemmas throughout their careers, and this requires a strong commitment to ethical standards. And recognizing and addressing these challenges is key to maintaining the integrity and credibility of news. So the role of ethics in television journalism, as I said, is very important, because we are dealing with pictures and we are dealing with videos, and they are the ones which are regarded as very verifiable evidence, because if you're seeing something with your ears, you tend to believe that more. And as we know that the technology has reached to such a situation that it is possible for people to doctor images, doctor videos, to create these deep fakes. So in journalism we have to be very careful about that. Or as we know that people might have a vested interest, or they might be having reasons to put out certain things on air, or they want a certain point of view to be aired. So as journalists we have to ensure that we do not fall prey to all that, and we are very careful when it comes to putting out information for public consumption. So in television journalism, ethical considerations are particularly crucial due to the medium's wide reach and visual impact. It is seen by almost everybody, even people who do not have education, they would be watching television. For example, if you want to access a newspaper, you must know how to read. But in television, you don't require all that. So it has a wide reach and visual impact. As I said, people believe what is shown on screen. So ethical lapses in television journalism can be more conspicuous and have a broader impact than in other media forms. In other media forms, it is limited, but here it's much more broader, because as we know that different people might react differently to a story. So ethical considerations in TV journalism include fair and balanced coverage, especially in controversial or sensitive topics. And this ensures that TV coverage is not biased and provides a comprehensive view of the subject, and that is essential for ethical television journalism. And that covers this ethical concerns covers both the news coverage and scripting, how you cover certain things, who are the people who you would want to give visibility to, are you doing certain things which might propagate a particular point of view or puts a particular group of people in bad light, and how you script that, how you present that is very important. And we will be talking about framing theory later on in another course, where how you frame the news, and that is done by emphasizing certain points of view or not emphasizing other points of view. For example, if there is an accident story, it can be framed in terms of rash driving, that we frame it in a manner in which we accuse or we blame drivers for accidents because their driving skills are very rash. So how we decide that which point to emphasize in our news script is important, and that has to be done ethically, as we are saying in today's lecture. So ethical concerns in TV news coverage extends to how these stories are selected, the time allotted to them, and the tone used in news scripts. Are you putting that very angrily? You are showing, making people outraged, against certain events or issues. So avoiding bias in story selection and presentation is crucial to upholding journalistic integrity. And script for TV news should be carefully crafted to avoid trivializing or misrepresenting the news, that you do not make it appear smaller. It is a big thing, and just by your coverage you are appearing as if this is normal or if this is trivial. So you should be carefully avoiding these kind of trivializing or misrepresenting the news. And the conversational tone of news scripts should not undermine the seriousness of the subject matter. Because you are talking in a conversational tone does not mean that you undermine the seriousness, or you're disrespectful to the individuals involved in those news bulletins. So you must make sure that the seriousness is not undermined, nor is respect undermined for the participants. And that's important in news videos as well, because there can be certain points of view, and there are various cinematic techniques in which you can emphasize certain points, in which you can we can make certain points appear, you can make certain subjects appear more sinister, or you can even use on-screen kind of annotations where you encircle a person's face or you blow it up and those kind of things. So those are possible, and it's important to be very ethical in that as well, because the idea is to provide the best possible information to the audience, which they can use in the best possible manner. So in television news, the ethical use of video content is paramount. Videos should accurately present the story being told and must not be misleading or taken out of context. Because if you take a video out of context, and that is done on the social media very often, that you cut out, edit out certain parts, or you when a person is making a debating point, you just put the first part and you do not put in the second part of it where he's actually explaining certain things. So that is taking things out of context, and that is probably misrepresenting, because you are not putting out the best form of the story. So during coverage of disasters or critical events, ethical practice demands clarity on the origin and the timeline of the footage being used. And there have been cases where a particular flood or a particular landslide has happened, and people have used some other pictures from times before, and that's very unethical, because you are not representing what is actually happening. So often during those things you have to put out the origin, that these pictures are from here, and this is the date and time of the footage, or this is where it was shot. So using archival footage without appropriate disclosure is a misleading thing for viewers, and it violates ethical standards, and that undermines the credibility of the news channel. And celebrity coverage again is extremely important, because we as human beings or we as viewers would want to know about what is happening to prominent people. We are extremely interested to find out what these extraordinary people are doing, or even if they are in an ordinary situation, what is happening to them. So lot of coverage is about people, because as we know that human interest forms a very important news values. So how you cover these celebrities in TV news is very important. So TV news coverage of celebrities poses unique ethical challenges, and that especially concerns privacy and public interest. And these days, especially because of social media, these celebrities are often kind of chased by photographers, even in a private setup, and that can be very disconcerting. And it does not happen in television news coverage that much, but for every journalist, it's important to respect the privacy needs. Of course, public figures have a right to be covered, and they have every right to be asked questions. But if their private activities are not in public interest, if it is not newsworthy, just the fact that somebody is meeting somebody, somebody is going somewhere, somebody is wearing this or that, is not ethical. And and more so because it is not in public interest. It does not matter to public, what these celebrities are doing in their private lives, unless it is something that concerns all of us. And if it does not concern all of us, it should not be there in news. So the line between newsworthy coverage and invasive reporting, you invade somebody's privacy, this line is very thin, and that requires careful navigation. That we should be very clear about not crossing that particular line. So this line is there between privacy and between newsworthiness. So if it's newsworthy, if it is in public interest, of course we will cover that, but we must ensure that this thin line is first of all clear to us, and we have to be very clear in navigating that particular line. So ethical journalism respects the privacy of individuals, even public figures, unless there is a compelling public interest in the information. One of the yardsticks which help us to determine whether that news should be covered or not is the decision to find out whether it is in public interest or not. If it is in public interest, go ahead and cover it. But this balance is crucial in upholding the rights to privacy and free speech. So the integrity of the media and the democratic process is very important. First of all, whenever we consume media content, we are absolutely clear about 2 or 3 things. First of all, we know that the content has been verified, that the journalist has done everything to make sure that the information which is put out in public domain has been verified. We are also clear about the fact that it is independent, or that the media has autonomously decided that this is, we as institution, we want our viewers to, and we want our readers to know this information or to consume this information. So this autonomy is very important, that media is supposed to be independent. And finally, they are of course they are accountable, because we give them the status of the fourth estate. The media has rights to go to all these places, ask questions, and they just like every citizen, they have the right to freedom of speech and expression, and they utilize those rights to make sure that people get the right information. So we have to understand the importance of media autonomy and also the role of the media in a democratic setup. So media integrity is the ability of media outlets to serve public interest and democratic processes free from institutional corruption, political bias, and undue private influence. And all these 3 things are very important. That first of all, the media exists to serve public interest and to serve democratic processes, because the media is important in a democratic setup. In fact, one of the vital components of the democratic setup. And that is why it must be free from institutional corruption. There shouldn't be any corruption in the media institution. That everybody who is inside the media, like Caesar's wife, they must be above suspicion. They must have no political bias and no undue private influence. They must not be influenced by any kind of corporate interests. So a media outlet with integrity is transparent about its financial interests, adheres to journalism ethics and standards, and is responsive to its audience. This integrity is essential for a healthy democracy as it ensures that the media remains a trustworthy source of information and a check on power. So what are the principles of ethical journalism? Of course, all the principles or all the codes of conduct, they talk of a lot of things, including that of fairness, that you're being fair to all the parties concerned, of accuracy, making sure that all the news collection and the presentation is as accurate as possible at times, and then being unbiased, that you are not that the only reason that you are in the media business is that you are there to address the public interest. So all those biases should not be there. The question of verifiability, as I said, the question of independence, the question of accountability, all these things are very, very important and general ethical principles across media, across countries in democratic setups. Because as we keep on repeating that the media that we are talking about is applicable for a democratic setup, because if it is not a democratic setup, then the media does not have that kind of a role, or the media does not have that kind of a reason for their existence. So ethical journalism is grounded in accuracy, fairness, and honesty. And journalists must strive for truth and avoiding misleading the public. And this commitment includes diligently verifying information and seeking out original sources. Ethical journalists are not only responsible for the information they disseminate, but also for the manner in which they gather it and the manner in which they get it. So courage and honesty in news gathering and reporting are fundamental to maintaining the trust and respect of the audience. Because if the sources, and you might have seen many films or you might have heard many cases where journalists are prepared even to go to jail, but they are not going to reveal their sources because somebody has had the courage to come out to the media and reveal some wrongdoing or whatever. And if you reveal the source, then the source might be in danger. So your job is to make sure that these anonymous sources are handled with care. First of all, provide them anonymity with the understanding that the news is important. Otherwise, we do not go for these off-the-record cases or where the source wants to be anonymous. But if you think that these anonymous sources are important and the news is in public interest, then you must handle that with a lot of care, because anonymity is a tool that should be reserved for situations or for those sources who may face danger, retaliation, or other serious consequences. And ethical reporting dictates that the reasons for granting anonymity be explained to the audience. The audience knows that why we have to keep this anonymous, that our viewers should know why we are not disclosing the source. And this transparency is important. It helps maintain trust in journalists' integrity and the accuracy of the information being reported. And let's talk of certain case studies here. There are two things that I want to emphasize here, and these are very important case studies. The singular cases that I'm talking about here is not important, but the fact of the manner in which the news coverage is done is extremely important. So the first is the tragic death of Princess Diana in 1997, and we know that she was being chased by paparazzi. Paparazzi are people who are looking at trying to get pictures of celebrities to sell it to big media organizations. So this is a stark example of unethical media practices. Here the princess had to run away from the paparazzi at such a high speed that she met with this tragic accident. So this highlights the dangers of intrusive and aggressive journalism, because people are running away from the media like that, and that is such a stark thing for all of us to know, because you invade people's privacy and they have to run away from that, or they might have to live with the consequences for that. So this safety and privacy of individuals is paramount. Why do we need to cover that if it is not in public interest? We should not. So this trend of sting operations has been there in the early 2000s, and we've outlets like the Helka and others, and that has raised serious questions where the reporter goes undercover or he meets people without telling them he or she is a reporter, and they cause them to do certain things or say certain things because that person is saying certain things to the reporter unaware that the person who's talking to him or her is a reporter. And at times the person is kind of trapped into saying certain things and so on and so forth. So if these sting operations, and most of these things are done in a hidden camera, so these days people are extremely careful in talking in front of other people, because if there is a hidden camera, maybe hidden in somebody's button or in a pen or any kind of a thing, that can create consequences. So some of these sting operations were actually in public interest and brought out cases of corruption and all. Other operations led to a lot of falsehoods, because many of these sting operations did not report the actual truth, but just trapped the celebrities or maybe politicians into saying certain things in certain situations, and which was not, or at times they were out of context. We're not suggesting that sting operations are not good, but all this adherence to the norms of public interest, of the norms of putting things in context, to deciding whether there are other ways in which the same story can be told, is very, very important. And in certain cases, there have been cases where journalists have been accused of blackmail and all those kind of things. And these things are extremely important, because if one journalist gets a bad name, then at times many others have to feel the brunt of it. So these concerns about journalistic integrity are actually very important. So these ethical dilemmas in sting operations is something that I want to kind of emphasize more. So sting operations used as a tool for investigative journalism, they have a number of ethical dilemmas. First of all, at times they can expose wrongdoings and they can serve public interest, because in certain cases there is no other way of finding it out. But they can also fringe on privacy and lead to misinformation, as we say, things would have been out of context, or people are just trapped into saying certain things just for sensationalism, and the actual story is not as stark as being said. So there have been a lot of those cases where it has been found out that the potential harms are much more. So if there is an unethical sting operation, the potential harm, it would include damage to the reputations, in many cases unfairly, and the public trust in the media. The media itself gets a bad name, because if one section of the media gets a bad name, then the entire media institution as a whole has to be careful about these kind of things. So there have been, in response to all that, there have been guidelines by honorable courts to regulate their use by news channels, and these guidelines include obtaining a certificate of authenticity and seeking permission from designated committees, from designated officials, before telecasting a sting operation. So you inform the authorities about what is happening, and then you can do that. So these guidelines aim to balance the public interest in broadcasting sting operations with the rights to privacy and accuracy. And this ensures that such operations are conducted ethically and responsibly. In the written section of this course, you will have a section on the broadcasting lingo, where they talk about all those things that are used in the newsroom very, very efficiently. So terms such as anchor or beats or B-roll and cold copy, all these are part of daily vocabulary, and as journalists you are supposed to know these technical jargon, because understanding these terms enhances the collaboration and efficiency among newsroom staff, ensuring that all members are aligned in the process of news production, from planning to broadcasting. So a TV newsroom, as you've seen, has various roles, and these include anchors, reporters, editors, producers, directors, among others, and each role carries different ethical responsibilities, from accurate and fair covering to respectful and unbiased coverage. And understanding these roles is very vital for news reporting. Thank you for staying along in this lecture. You were listening to the part 3 of unit 3, which is on news scripts. And this course, as you know, is for the Master of Arts students in Journalism and Mass Communication. This is from the Department of Journalism. Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University, Ahmedabad. And this recording comes to you from the Chaitanya studio at Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar Open University, Ahmedabad. We'll be back with Unit 4 very soon. Till then, have a nice time.